Led Zeppelin II is the second album that Led Zeppelin released in 1969. You would think a mere 9 months after releasing their debut, a new band like this would be stretched thin for material, but that cannot be further from the truth. Led Zeppelin manages to not just provide a fulfilling follow-up to their debut, but also manages, in my opinion, to surpass it. As is usual for Zeppelin, great musicianship is featured throughout. It never feels like the guitar, bass, or drums are overshadowing any one of the others, but also never feels like any one of them is moderating for fear of doing so to the others. There are only so many times I can praise the playing of Jimmy Page, John Bonham, and John Paul Jones in my album reviews, so I feel I may start to sound a bit stale after a while. However, it rings true every time. The consistent excellence in the instrumentation is something that is both a trademark of Led Zeppelin and a watermark for every other band that has followed since. Led Zeppelin II also sees the band start to experiment with sounds outside of hard blues rock. Ramble On and Thank You see the band start to experiment with folk rock, and the latter also sees the band try out writing some softer sounding songs. Both of these things would come to be very important on Led Zeppelin IV, but they also work great first time around as well. Overall, Led Zeppelin II is a great package from start to finish. The songs here are shorter and faster, but the energy from the first album feels a lot more focused. Every song feels like it's in the proper place. The album opens and closes on the proper notes, and even the weakest track manages to provide greatly to the overall sound of the album. Whole Lotta Love is a great way to kick off this album. As soon as the opening guitar riff starts, the album commands the listener's entire attention. The song is by now a tried and true classic, and it still holds up every time you come back to it. It is pure Zeppelin. All the ingredients are here. Fast, hard, great vocals, great chorus, great playing, great lyrics. All there, the full thing. The weird wishes and the plain sounds on the song were a nice touch, making it sound a bit frantic and feel quite appropriate, given the band's name as well as also how this album cover looks. Plant's vocalizations and the echo effect work quite well at giving the middle part of this song a unique character as well, being a bit weird, but still managing to keep the pace of the rest of the song. What is and what should never be is perhaps the most consistent track on Led Zeppelin II. The playing, vocals, and lyrics remain on point throughout the entire song, and the band never deviates off point. I like the weird effect on the verses vocal, and I also like how the band is able to go from soft verses to a loud, hard chorus almost instantaneously. The chorus on this song is also great, making this a very good follow-up to Legion of Album after A Whole Lotta Love. The Lemon song is a bit of a mixed bag. It is nice and bluesy, and it starts out on the right foot. Plant is nice and energetic, and the instrumentation is all well done, but after a while, Plant does start to lose some of his steam and drone on a bit, and the lyrics are not the band's best. What really sells the song is the two rockabilly-sounding guitar solos, one early on in the song, and one kicking the song back into gear in the back half of the song. These two solos, featured on perhaps the album's weakest track, are among Jimmy Page's best on the album, borrowing perhaps only the solo for Ramble On. In the end, the song does not really stand well on its own, but it does contribute greatly to the overall sound of the album, more than owning its spot on the first slide of the LP. Thank You is an oddball in Zeppelin's catalog. The song is a very sweet ballad, the type of which lives or dies by both its lyrics and delivery. Thankfully, this song manages to land both. For a band who's built on being sexy and badass, the song plays heartfelt and vulnerable for all its worth. A gamble that, in this case, more than pays off. Plant's vocal is great, perfectly showing that he could perform softer songs 2 years before Going to California even came out. The backing isn't one of the album's best, featuring a wall sound style, but that works quite well in showing off the band's versatility, and it is also appropriate for this song and its style. Now, usually when I start side 2 on these videos, I switch to the back of the sleeve and showing that off, but there's not too much of the back of this album sleeve, so I'm going to be showing off the inside the gatefold here while I discuss side 2 songs instead, because it's just more visually interesting. Heartbreaker is, for me, a song built almost entirely on John Paul Jones. Jimmy Page's guitar solo is good, but it is far from his best, in my opinion, and the same could be said about Plant's vocals. But the bass on the song is good enough you can listen to it for the bass alone, and it would still be great. The lyrics are pretty good too, although they are very similar to the next song. Living Loving Maid She's Just a Woman, features some of the weakest playing from the band in this point in their history, but it also features a good set of lyrics and a very great vocal performance. The way Plant makes some of the lyrics roll off his tongue sounds great, and really makes this a pleasure to listen to. It's a bit mainstream and radio sounding, but I like it. It really is kind of like the perfect counterpart to Heartbreaker. Ramble On is one of the first in a great line of folksy-sounding Led Zeppelin songs. It's not as apparent in the vocals, but the guitar, especially the amazing solo, have a kind of lilting, earthy feel, none of which comes at the expense of the song's weight. The vocal on this song is heavy, while the song structure is one of the band's more standard ones, but the chorus really stands out as one of the finest in the band's entire catalog. The ending part with the different vocal tracks also really helps the song stand out. Robert Plant has had one of his best vocal tracks on the album on this song, and then manages to do it twice at the same time. The overlap of the two, and the impression of Plant talking over himself, gives this song a very unique atmosphere of a sort of sprawling nervousness, a term I'm coining just for this song right now. Getting that one added to Urban Dictionary soon. It would be easy to describe Moby Dick as one long drum solo, but it actually does have a guitar part on it. Nobody cares about the guitar in Moby Dick. It is John Bonham's big spotlight song, and it succeeds at every turn. On one hand, I do sometimes wonder if Led Zeppelin should have included a live recording of this song on one of their albums instead of a studio version, but on the other hand, I do believe we were perhaps better off with the studio version. Being able to clearly hear each time that John Bonham hits the drum skin is really satisfying and goes to show just how much precision he had at it while at the same time being able to play incredibly fast. Bring It On Home starts out as a slow blues cover song with a somewhat muffled sound to the vocal. It sounds like Robert Plant is mumbling the lyrics and stretching his voice too low in order to try to mimic the original, but also at the same time it does kind of sound like there's maybe something over the microphone as well. The harmonica on this opening section also feels a bit extraneous. Usually, albeit not on this particular album, Plant does a back and forth with Page's guitar that sort of serves as a substitute for the harmonica part on the pure blues songs, but honestly that's probably what should have been done here in my personal opinion, like, it's more Zeppelin-y. Still, after a while, this facade of the slow blues song is dropped, and the song breaks out into a more appropriate hard and fast rock that is more of a parallel to the original than being just a cover. Plant's vocals are back to normal, and while this is not anywhere close to a spotlight song for him, he performs quite admirably. What really makes this song tick is the guitar riffs featured throughout, some of Page's best work on this album. After a while, the song slows back into the opening style for the ending, but Plant stays in his normal vocal range. This smooth deceleration succeeds at landing both the song and the album with finesse. The opening of this song seemed somewhat unnecessary, but the way it transitions back at the very end is well done and makes the album come to a very clean stop without it feeling like it is an abrupt ending, which is something that usually tends to happen with albums that end on fast songs like this. So anyways, now we're going to be looking at the sleeve before I go on to the final review of the album. It's not Led Zeppelin's nicest sleeve. I certainly like one sleeve better, fold sleeve better. Honestly, I probably like most of them better, except for maybe three. Well, I guess it's better than Presence's sleeve as well, or at least it's more Zeppelin-y than Presence's. I do like the logo up here. This down here, it's a photograph of the band superimposed on it. It was from the World War I, I think. It was like the German Air Force. Kind of odd, and I don't really know who that's supposed to be. But it's kind of funny, and some of these guys look kind of cool with their glasses and whatever. I do kind of like the clouds. Overall, I'm not sure I really like the color combination on this. Now, this is a modern repressing. Now, I do want to get an original copy at some point, and I do see them around. I do believe this brown color is slightly darker on the original copies of this album. So I think to some degree it's just the color here doesn't look great. But even on the original, this isn't like a great looking cover. I do like the Atlantic logo down there, but yeah, it is kind of ugly, to be honest. And if we fold it out, this white shape here turns into the Led Zeppelin logo. Well, kind of the Zeppelin silhouette. I would prefer that, honestly, if they'd had at least some details on it, some lines or something to add, like, shading. I understand why we did it that way, but when it's, like, the sleeve is closed, it doesn't look too good. And as you can see, this is why I didn't have the back featured when we were doing side 2, because there's literally nothing on the back. Since this is a modern repressing, you do have this kind of holographic swan song sticker. I do like that. Original copies wouldn't have had that, though. Since it's repressing, also the spine is obscenely thick. For some reason, that's just a thing they do on repressings. They make the spine way too thick. And then here you have the gatefold. You've got this kind of golden Zeppelin thing. It kind of reminds me of something maybe you'd see Donald Trump do, or maybe something at like Oral Roberts University or something. But it is kind of fitting for a band that's kind of, you know, big and out there. Kind of something you feel like you'd see in kind of glam market, and maybe the late 70s, maybe you see like Kiss do something like this. Golden Zeppelin, you know, this is nicer than the outside of the album, but it's still a little bit gaudy, but I think it fits better here. Got each one of the band's names kind of carved in stone, and then you have this kind of Roman-looking architecture here. And then I actually like this part over here a little bit better with the stone or marble kind of thing with the song names on it. Kind of, I guess, supposed to look like they're carved in there, although it's really just kind of plain font. It does look nice and shiny. I do kind of like the art style on this, even if the subject matter is not the best. So, there it is. And as the label, album, the Atlantic label, always a nice thing to see. Also, another thing I like to note that I don't really see people talk about is on the label, Living Loving Maid, she's just a woman, is listed actually as Living Loving Wreck, she's just a woman. I don't really know why that is, so if somebody knows, please comment below, because I sure as hell don't know why it has two different names, although this name kind of makes some sense as well with the song's title. Also, since this was the Walmart exclusive version of this repressing, because this is just something I got really early on in my collection. Also came with this Backstage Pass replica. It's really just a cheap kind of worthless piece of cardboard, but it does say Led Zeppelin on it, and in the Led Zeppelin font, which is kind of nice. Kind of trash, honestly, though. Yeah, honestly, I don't like this album cover that much. Like, I love this album, but the cover of it's kind of ugly. I honestly probably like Flea's cover better than this as well. Like, I like it maybe better than Presence's cover, and, like, maybe Coda's as well, but otherwise, like, that's it. Every other Led Zeppelin album has a better cover than this one. Certainly one has a much nicer cover than this one. And I think the color choices were just kind of odd. I do kind of like the photo, though, but the color choices, I feel like, were just kind of not good. And it wasn't good here. So, yeah, I'm going to be reading off the final review scores for the songs and the album now. So, I guess I might as well cut straight to the chase. Whole Lotta Love, I give, unsurprisingly, 10 out of 10. What Is What Should Never Be, 9 out of 10. The Lemon Song, 7 out of 10. That's still a pretty good score. Thank You, 10 out of 10. Heartbreaker, 9 out of 10. Living Loving Maid, She's Just a Woman, 9 out of 10. Ramble On, 10 out of 10. Moby Dick, 9 out of 10. Bring On Home, 8 out of 10. And for my top 3 recommended cuts in this album, I give Whole Lotta Love, Ramble On, and Thank You. And overall, I give the album 10 out of 10. This is honestly, in my opinion, this is Led Zeppelin's second best album after Led Zeppelin IV. You know, obviously saying the best one's Led Zeppelin IV is kind of a basic opinion, and honestly, it's not one of my, I guess, most unique opinions, but, you know, there's some people who prefer 3 over 2, there's some people who think 1 is actually their best album, or the best after 4, and there's some people like 1 better than 4. Personally, after 4, my favorite Led Zeppelin album, though, is the good old, solid, reliable Led Zeppelin II. All the members of the band get a good chance to shine, you know, on this album. All the playing's great, although, you know, that kind of applies in general. It's a part of the first 4, you know, the best kind of one. And although it does have the, like, ugliest album cover of this first fall, music is what matters, and that's great. I mean, you got a very good track listing going on here. Even the Lemon Song has some great stuff on it. Like, let's face it. Like, and I also find this album just to be somewhat more memorable than 3 in terms of its song picks. Like it's pretty close between this and 1. Of the source far, I'd say the weakest is 3, although I will go back and review that, in a little bit. Obviously, keep your eyes out for that. But yeah, Led Zeppelin II, in my opinion, the second best Led Zeppelin album. That's why they call it Led Zeppelin II. Actually, they call it Led Zeppelin II because it's the second Led Zeppelin album, but Led Zeppelin II, there you go. I hope everyone's liked this video. Be sure to watch, subscribe, like, comment, share, follow your friends, whatever, because obviously I do need the any help getting views as possible. And I've already done, and I have a playlist of Led Zeppelin album reviews, and I'll try to remember to put it in this description of this video. But if not, you can find that on my channel real easily. It's a public playlist. I've already reviewed Led Zeppelin 1 and Presence, and I will be reviewing Led Zeppelin 3 soon, and then also all the other ones will come sooner or later, because Led Zeppelin doesn't have that big of a discography, but all the albums are kind of like major releases in terms of like the history of rock. So yeah, I mean, all of those will be coming pretty soon. And so I guess that's all for today. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.